Yeah, after living in Germany for quite some time, I would say there is no denying that there is actually colonial continuity, yeah, which I've experienced and maybe I still experience in the form of racism and discrimination, as you rightly say.
Welcome to the fifth episode of the podcast Decolonial Memories. I am Thomas Fuß. Today I am talking to Dr. Priscillia Manjoh. Dr. Manjoh is a Cameroonian writer and academic residing in Berlin. Dear Dr. Manjoh, thank you very much for joining me for this new episode of the podcast Decolonial Memories. First, I wish to congratulate you for the award given to you of the Mount Cameroon Literary Grand Prize 2023 for your novel Angry. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to take part in this interview.
Could we first turn to you as a person, to your personal life and views maybe and experiences? Can you remember growing up in Cameroon when you for the first time learned about German colonialism in your country?
Okay, yes. As far back as I can remember, the very first hint on colonialism as a whole was from a childhood song that was sung around the 80s when I was still very young. So the song goes like this: "We were one, but the white man came with his big sense and divided Cameroon." You know, something like that. It's like we were one, the white man came and divided Cameroon, and we were divided until like 1961 or something. I can't really remember the parts of the songs, but it actually had to do with the white man coming and dividing Cameroon and things like that. So this was the first hint I had on the whole issue of colonialism, although I didn't quite understand it fully at that time.
At that time it was not specifically directed towards the German colonial rule, so it was more colonialism in your country.
In general, yes. And even this song also does not really make much sense, because I came to realize that Cameroon as a nation was not one prior to colonialism. So this is in the sense that there are many ethnic groups in Cameroon, there are many tribes in Cameroon which still exist. They exist up till date. So these groups have specific villages, and these villages also have different languages. So, and at the top of these villages, at the head, is the palace. And at the head of these palaces, we have chiefs, we have fonts. So you can see that these villages, they were really much more run like potential nations prior to colonialism. So there are several, in Cameroon we have over 250 languages, not dialects, real languages. So the chief or the fon is at the head of each village. And each village, they had its own laws guided by the customs of the people. So all the administrative power emanated from the palace, and administrative institutions were really, really very important. So, for example, we have the Boom Kingdom. You know, these palaces, they were like little kingdoms. So we had the Boom Kingdom, who have the institutions such as the Quifon, which has the jurisdiction of checking things like witchcraft, treason, murder, treasonable adultery, and things like that. And even in the Bafut Kingdom, we have the Mamfo, that is the Queen Mother, who trains younger wives and even controls the secret society of the fondoms of these kingdoms. So, I mean, they were like small nations growing up because they actually function like nations. So these groups, I mean, they saw themselves also as belonging to different communities. For instance, the Bali people of Cameroon went to war with the Meta people because they saw themselves as people of diverse territory, diverse climatic zones, of variety of politics. So I don't know how this song came about that we were one and then we were divided.
Okay, yes,
Yeah, so I mean
but
that's a long. So it's like a little
it's,
bit. Yeah, but it hinted already. When I reflect on it, it hinted already on the general idea of colonialism as a whole. Then there was also my teacher during my early school days, who always told us something about the three E's, like E.
meaning.
Yeah, E. So he will tell us, I mean, it's not like we had a history class. Maybe he will be teaching like math or English language, and in the middle, he will just stop and just tell us that you should always remember the three E's, that the Europeans, they came to explore, they came to exploit, and then to export. It is called the three E's.
Okay,
And he asked
yes.
us to repeat it after him. And then he told us that, yes, whenever we are asked why colonialism took place, we should forget about the whole idea of the civilizing mission, that in actual sense, the three E's were behind the colonizing mission of the Europeans. They came to explore, exploit, and export. So I remember this from my early days in school. Okay, so like I said, I mean, it's like a general notion on colonialism. This is not speaking maybe about the Germans. Then thereafter, during my secondary school days when I was on holidays, my father used to take me to the company where he worked. This company is called CDC, Cameroon Development Corporation. And he used to take me to a factory, you call it a rubber factory. It is based in the town in which I was born and I partly grew up. So he used to show me the factory, the procedure, how rubber is being produced from start to finish. And then he showed me this machinery, this plant. It's in my eyes, I mean, it was very gigantic. And then he told me that it's the Germans who built this
Still from colonial
times.
And it's still working.
It's
They're
still
still
working.
using it. Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So he told me about this plant. I was so amazed and I really liked it. I really admired. That's the first time I started having the Germans in my mind. And then thereafter, we talked. He told us that the Germans, they were there. His father told him that the Germans came before the English and the French. So he told us a little bit of stories that he also got from his father when the Germans colonized in Cameroon. So, I mean, those were my early, very early memories about the whole idea of colonialism.
So at that point, it could be that you did not have any sort of negative connotations with the Germans, right? It's the machinery, and I heard other people talk about the bridges in Cameroon from the German colonial period.
Yeah, right.
When did it change in your mind or in the knowledge about the full extent of German violence and destruction and exploitation?
Exactly. Because, I mean, we had all these positive things about the Germans. They built very strong bridges, like you said, strong buildings. Everything, the German bullet is very strong. So we were very positive, this Eurocentric notion. So when it actually dawned onto me that there were some negative consequences to this whole idea of colonialism, was actually when I came to Europe. It was not until when I started studying and started reading and started experiencing certain things generally in my personal life that I realized that there were a lot of negative things, not really a lot, but there were also negative things that were really violent as far as the German colonial period is concerned. So I'll begin with the fact that I could also then remember that my father told me what his father said that the Germans did when they were recruiting like workers to work on the railways, to work on the plantations, how they were very ruthless, how they beat them up and forced them to do the work in order for the productivity to be much, and they wanted to it was all like they wanted some material gain to really, they used them as laborers, as like, to me, was like a form of enslavement. So, and even then in Cameroon, it still occurred to me, and I'm sure to a whole lot of people, that, okay, maybe they were training them to be hardworking. Yeah, because it was like, they have to work hard, they have to finish, they have to develop the place. Germany, they were out to like build settlers and colonies. They were not just like wanting to pass by, so they were actually also being productive, also building and things. So it still looked a kind of positive in my eyes at that time. And when I came to realize the consequences was when I started also researching on the whole idea of the marginalization of the English-speaking Cameroonians of my country, in the sense that I realized that when the Germans left, Cameroon was divided unequally between the French and the British. And this led to the marginalization of the minority. The issue of minority everywhere, the minority always like kind of suffer certain consequences when it's being dominated by the majority. Although in Canada, the situation is different. So that's why we have been trying also to see if we can learn from what is happening in Canada, because in Canada the reverse is true. There are the majority who are speaking English and the minority are speaking French, but they can cope, they can handle their affairs, and they wouldn't have any problems and things like that like we are having in Cameroon. So that's why personally I'm positive that the problem will be resolved and Cameroon will attain a certain level of understanding in its diverse multicultural nature, to see itself as one happy country and to be able to function without this minority problem. So I realized that had it been the Germans had not left when they did, we wouldn't have had this problem. Mm-hmm. And it's no doubt there is something that also happened along the line when the Germans left, which I also got, I think, from conversations that I have with friends. It's like when the Germans were leaving after the First World War, the people had become so fond of the Germans, so much so that they were lamenting. I mean, the house helps, the people who were like the domestic servants, they were crying that, why, I mean, they are leaving. So the Germans were like, we are going to come back. Never mind, we will come back. So there's this saying, at least in the southwest region where I grew up, when you tell somebody, I'm coming, I'll come back, the person will tell you, the Germans said they'll come back. They never came. They left us. Yeah. So are you sure you're going to come back?
The memory is still alive.
Yes, it's still there. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like they are lamenting that the Germans, I mean, should have come back. So even right now, okay, I feel like I'm like encouraging some form of recolonization, that they should come back. But this lament, these people, they didn't even know how much they were even speaking into the lamentation, because the only time that Cameroon has experienced oneness is under German colonialism.
Here I would like to ask you, I've talked to Princess Marilyn from the Bell family in Douala. And she has these cultural programs with the idea that if she can, let's say, focus people in Cameroon on the period of German colonialism, then this would open avenues to the new form of national identity and national union between the English-speaking and the Francophone part of the population. Do you think this is a concept or an idea, a vision that could be successful in your country?
This is my vision, I would say. I don't know when you spoke with her, But actually, I actually have a similar idea, a similar opinion, and a similar manner in which this, or maybe a manner in which this can be enhanced, this can be done. Because on trying to contribute ideas to the oneness, to the idea of peace and unity in Cameroon, I remember vividly how I looked back into the time of the German colonial past to suggest this idea of oneness. And it was then that I realized that Cameroon has been one only under German colonial rule, because prior to colonialism, before colonialism, Cameroon had different ethnic groups, and those ethnic groups could actually be very, very sensitive also. You know, the whole issue of nepotism and favoritism and all those things, corruptions are being bred with so many ethnic groups and tribes. But during the German colonialism, like every other colonial period, you are not supposed to speak your language, the native language in schools. You are not supposed to speak any other thing other than the German language. So that was unifying, especially at the national level. But now we have two national languages, so it's actually bringing problems. So the idea of looking back into the German colonial past is very, very relevant, I would say, to us to bring peace and unity in Cameroon.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's turn to the next point now. In your PhD work, you addressed the divisions of your country between these two language groups. Could you go a little bit into that? What were your findings? What do you see? What's happening now in Cameroon at this moment?
Yeah, actually, what I researched on, I actually researched on Africa as a whole, because my area of research is post-colonial literatures and cultures. I research on Africa as a whole, and I actually research specifically on Cameroon. So what I realized regarding the English-speaking part and the French-speaking parts of Cameroon is that, or the Cameroonian problem as a whole, is that the problem in Cameroon is twofold. First, you have the general Cameroonian problem, which has to do with a lot of things that are not just economic, but also you have the issue of ethnicity, because Cameroon has over 250 languages, and these languages, they come from different villages, and so you can see how there's a lot of a kind of competition, I would say, in a negative way. Unfortunately, there is nepotism, there is corruption as a result of that. So this affects every Cameroonian. And then there is the problem, the issue of marginalization, which the English-speaking part, who are the minority, they complain that they are being marginalized in the sense that they are not well represented in the nation, even at the level of the government or at every other level. And also looking at their social status in the country, they believe that their cultures that emanate also from these two regions, which are the minority, because out of the 10 regions of Cameroon, just 2 regions are made up of English-speaking citizens. So they believe that those cultures are also neglected and also not very much respected. So this is what actually brought the whole idea of the separatists who rose up and started fighting for autonomy for themselves. They started fighting for an independent nation of their own, the Northwest and the Southwest region. So they reflect back, they bring everything from history. You know, there's a lot of talk what happened during the plebiscite of 1961 when Cameroon was required to choose between joining Nigeria, that's the English-speaking part of Cameroon, the Northwest and the Southwest region, They were supposed to choose either to join Nigeria or to join their brothers, the French-speaking part of Cameroon, at independence. But note that at this time, the French-speaking part of Cameroon had already had independence. So they were speaking now about the English-speaking part that was colonized by the British, and that was administratively one with Nigeria, because Britain was like controlling the northwest and southwest regions from Nigeria. The headquarters then was in Nigeria, was controlling it as part of its Nigerian colony. So the question was, they should choose to join either of this group of people, and to them it was like choosing between the deep blue sea and fire, because when they look at the Nigerians, they didn't like the way the Nigerians also treated them, even when they were being administered from Nigeria by the British. They complained that the Nigerians were really ruthless in their treatment of these people. And then when they look at the French-speaking part of Cameroon, they didn't understand the language, they didn't know French. So it was really something that was like, to them, they would have preferred a third option. But unfortunately, this third option was propagated by P.M. Kale, one of the politicians. But then his political party was not very strong, was not big. His party was very small compared to Foncha and Endeli, the other two political party heads. So at the end of the day, it couldn't make any much impact. So that's how they went into this whole idea of the plebiscite and ended up voting overwhelmingly to join the French-speaking part of Cameroon. And if you go into the history of this, most historians have also argued that Foncha did not know that it was something that was going to be permanent. He thought the federal system that they were going into a union with the French-speaking part of Cameroon was something that was just for a trial period to see if they could actually cope living with the French-speaking part of Cameroon. He didn't know that it was something that was going to be permanent. And then, on the other hand, other historians have also argued that they went into two federal states. There is the English-speaking part and the French-speaking part of Cameroon. But then, later on, these two federal states became one, also through a voting system. They voted to be one unanimous state, to be a united Republic of Cameroon, and no longer the Federal Republic of Cameroon, two federal states. So the history of Cameroon is really, really a bit complicated, I would say, having had like 3 colonial masters in a row. And the period of German colonization was not really very long, as I would say. So the Germans, they had to leave early enough. That's one of the reasons why I think Cameroonians have not been really connecting, or Germans have not really been connecting too much, even till date, been very active in Cameroon, like maybe the French, for instance, because they are, yes.
Do you, today, do you see efforts by civil society or cultural institutions how the English-speaking and the French-speaking parts could come together in addressing the period of German colonialism? Anything going on? Like, do you have meetings of civil society groups that would work on the memories of German colonialism?
This is something that I actually have as a vision of mine, to actually go back into the history of the German colonial period in Cameroon. If I have the means, I would like to actually really open up a documentation of the German colonial past, because I think that it's very, very necessary for there should be a place, like a center. There should be an infrastructure, a place that captures everything, that captures an account of the German colonial period, because up till now, it's still in piecemeal. The ideas are scattered. We need videos. We have legacies of the German colonial time in Cameroon. We have graves of people who died, even children who even died of malaria. We have they call it the Prime Minister's Lodge in Boya. That was built by the Germans. We have the Sase College. It started as a primary school. And this primary school was around 1914, shortly before the Germans left. They laid the foundation for Sase College. What is Sase College today? Started as a primary school, I think St. Mary's Primary School also, and the foundations were laid down by the Germans. So all these things need to be captured, and they need to be a center where people can come visit. They need to see maybe videos and see those things and try to reflect and go back into, there should be trained personnel who are supposed to show people and guide people around about the German period in Cameroon. I think it's going to be very relevant, especially if the Germans are also thinking, from what I've also observed, of linking up, of having an influence in working out things with Cameroon regarding maybe restitution, because I see them making moves with the a whole idea of the artifacts that were gotten illegally, trying to return them. I think they are making a lot of efforts towards that. So these efforts could go a long way to actually establish a very good impact on the whole idea of a sustainable nation building in Cameroon.
Talking about spaces of memory or memorials designed by Cameroonians to remember their history of German colonialism. Did I understand you correctly? There's no place today there where I could go to visit to have some explanation, a building, let's say a colonial building that's used by Cameroonians to tell the story about German colonialism.
Not
It's
really.
nothing. No museum, no memorial.
There is the National Museum in Yaoundé. There are museums in the western region of the country, very good museums that could harbor certain artifacts, could harbor certain memories, but a specified place, which is like, I would call it maybe a German memorial, colonial past. There's no structure of which I'm aware of where you can actually go there and really get informed, because this part of our history is really, really important and deserves such a place to be distinct, not just to be found maybe amongst other material in a general museum or in a general setting. I believe that it should have its own specific space,
Yes.
which up till now, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think exists.
Thank you. We could now move on to the entangled relationships between Germany and Cameroon. Turning to the entangled relationship between the colonial society, colonial perpetrator society, which I'm part of, and to the Cameroonian society that was victim of the German colonial violence and occupation. Where do we stand today looking at the Cameroonian-German relations in a general sense, to start off with?
I think the Cameroonian-German relationship, they have a good bilateral relationship. I would say there is a good relationship between the two governments. And when I look at Cameroon, I see places like the Goethe Institute. It's in Cameroon. We have non-governmental organizations like the GIZ. And I even see like Brood for the World. They're also trying to get interested bit by bit to see how they can be of assistance to people in Cameroon. This just makes me to realize that Cameroon hasn't forgotten that Germany had been a kind of a part of their past. And the Prime Minister's Lodge, I talked about this kind of palace or schloss that is in Boya that was built by the Germans. When the head of state goes to visit this part of the country, that's where he actually lodges. So I guess I mean, it's a memory that it's like it's permanent. It's there, and there's no way that we can move away from it. There is only a way that we can relate to it. We can reflect on it for a better future, to better understand our past and better move on. There's no way we can avoid looking at everything that had to do with our past if we want our future to be better off than the past. So I think the German presence in Cameroon needs to be more. Yeah, Cameroon needs more of German presence. Yeah.
And what do we hear from Cameroonian society or government institutions regarding the repatriation of ancestral remains and the restitution of cultural heritage? You already referred to this issue. How specific are the calls or requests, let's say, from the traditional authorities or from the communities? Do they know what's here? In Germany, we have this Atlas of Absence with more than 40,000 cultural belongings identified in German public institutions alone. Is this known in Cameroon? And what comes out of this, you think, on the Cameroonian side?
Yeah, I think there is much awareness about these things nowadays. Yeah. Before, I would say maybe not, but at this point in time, the awareness is there. The people are quite aware about their history, their heritage, and everything. And as for the ancestral remains, if those that were assigned as belonging to Cameroon or coming from Cameroon, if they would be going back to Cameroon, I believe they will be given befitting burials. The only problem that I foresee would be that they would not know exactly specifically from which part of the country they are going to bury them or who is going to lay claim on those remains. And the Cameroon is a very, very multicultural country, at several levels, to the extent that the different ethnic groups, they have different burial rights. What to them is a befitting burial. When I talk about the befitting burial, it varies also from one ethnic group to another, from one tribe to another. There are some people, they prefer to bury their dead ones, and later on they exhume them in a way. It's a kind of ancestral custom that they practice. There are some whom, if they are burying people who are of a certain status in society, they have to bury them in a specific way. The fonts and the chiefs, and they have to be there, and there have to be things like a gun salute. They have to shoot the gun. It's not real guns, maybe blanks. But they have certain ceremonies that need to be performed. So the question would be now that, where are they going to bury these people, and what befitting burial could be given to them, in which case the country has to come together and give maybe a national burial, because apart from these ethnic groups, we have one body which is also the nation. So they could be given a befitting burial after the way in which an important person of that nation is honored at death. So I think that's a uniting way, a way that they could honor these ancestral remains. And as for the cultural belongings, as for the artifacts, I'm really very, very impressed by the fact that traditional rulers have been visiting Germany because of these artifacts. For instance, you have at the Humboldt Forum, from the kingdom of from the Bamum people of the western region, the Lamidu came here and actually sat on the throne, on the seat of his forefathers. It was so amazing. So, and I want to believe that even when these things will go back, they are going to go back to those communities, those society, those immediate communities where where they actually came from. I don't think they will be asked to be kept maybe in the museum in Yaoundé or somewhere, because I mean, like Afuakom had been repatriated to Cameroon, and it's now with the Com people, with the fund of Com.
Sorry, what is that specific cultural belonging? Or?
Yes, Afuakom.
Okay,
Yeah.
and who restituted it?
I think Afuakom finally came from the United States. You know, these belongings, these artifacts, sometimes they move from one place to and they travel around, and finally, I think the final place where Afuakom came back was from the United States, and it went back to the Com Kingdom. It's actually at the Fon's Palace, and I mean, we talk about Ngonso from the people of the Sok people, Ngonso, and Ngonso would be, I mean, of more value if Ngonso is returned to the people, to the community, because these artifacts have some sort of spiritual endowment. And as I listened to one Cameroonian philosopher, Professor Verijika Fansos, I mean, even says Ngonso might even need some cleansing to be done to it before being reinstated within the Sok community, and it's going to be of more value there than to just be sitting in a museum in Yaoundé. What will Ngonso be doing in a museum in Yaoundé? Ngonso is supposed to go back home to his people and be of great value to them. So
here at this point, how do you assess the willingness, the preparedness of the Cameroonian government to let these cultural belongings move towards the communities from which they were taken?
That's something also that I've been thinking about, because I spoke with one government official who had a kind of opinion that since the artifacts are in the West, or say they are in Germany, for instance, and when people go to look at these artifacts, normally they pay gate fees. Sometimes they get some economic value, some resources from it. It should be put in a way that it should be done in a way that if they still want to maybe keep some of the artifacts for this reason, they should maybe put a price on it. Let it be that they will use the money they collect to build the country, or to give it back to the nation, from where these artifacts came from. And I've also sampled other opinions that also say that the artifacts should be put in one place in a museum in Yaoundé, and then people should actually travel to come and see it there. It's going to encourage tourism in the country, and it's also, the resources are also going to be plowed back into the community, into the society, into building the nation. But I want to believe that the fact that about 3 traditional rulers have actually traveled abroad because of these artifacts, I want to think that it will be easily released to them, to their communities, through these traditional rulers, because these traditional rulers are already involved in reclaiming these artifacts. So I just want to believe that the government will be understanding, will be cooperative, will work hand in hand with these funds, because the government of Cameroon actually respects chiefs and funds, and respects those kingdoms, those palaces. They still have their roles to play, even though after independence, the nation was built with a different structure, the national structure and things like that. But the chiefs, the funds, they still have a very strong role to play in the countries and in the communities where they belong. And if they are saying these artifacts should come back to those communities, I am very optimistic. I believe that will be taken care of. It will be done. Yes.
Now I would like to turn to your perspective of Germany. You have lived here for quite a number of years. What have been your impressions or the experiences? To what extent do you recognize or experience colonial continuities in Germany, in the German population, like the whole issue of colonialism, enslavement, racism dating back to the colonial project? How much do you see it today?
Okay. Yeah, after living in Germany for quite some time, I would say there is no denying that there is actually colonial continuity, yeah, which I've experienced, and maybe I still experience in the form of racism and discrimination, as you rightly say. Yes. So these are things that I came to realize only when I traveled to Germany, because even though I talk about the ethnic groups that exist in my country and things like that, but there are discriminations that exist, but which are not really as glaring as when I experience racism in a country like Germany. I've had several encounters of racist treatments and things like that. And what is of utmost important is that I came to realize that the racism we're talking about in Germany is not just like physical racism, it's also in the structures. I mean, it's institutionalized, it's systematic in a way, it's embedded in the structures of the society, so much so that at the end of the day, there's no way that you can even talk about racism without aligning it to critical whiteness, to the concept of critical whiteness, whereby even a German who will say, I'm not racist, is a racist, whether he likes it or not. Because if you look at the very definition of critical whiteness, it's the advantages that I would say, in quotes, undeserved advantages, just by virtue of the fact that somebody is born German and these advantages accrue to this person. So that's the extent to which I have noticed or experienced racism in Germany. So I very much link racism to colonialism, because I know that initially, before the colonial period, if you want to look at the period of capitalism, it's almost at the same time coinciding somewhere with the colonial period, and colonialism was very much tied to capitalism under the pretext of civilization and things like that. That notwithstanding, before this period, there were forms of differentiation in the form of like believers and non-believers and things like that. But then you realize that these differentiations were fluid, in the sense that if I'm not a believer today, maybe tomorrow somebody can preach to me and I become a believer, and then our difference is ironed out, we become one. But with racism is actually inheritable, in the sense that you inherit racism. So even when you don't project those qualities, you are believed to be, they say it in German, Pauschalisierung, provided you are from this continent, provided you have this skin color, someone wouldn't even know your status in society. They just believe that because, the whole idea of colorism, the lighter the skin color, the better accepted the person is. So these are the many layers of racism that I have walked through and came out, because now I can even empower others and also try to throw light on the whole idea of how to handle racism in Germany, in the sense that if somebody is suffering from racism, it should not be left only in the hands of those people who are suffering, who are would say victims. People who are not victims are supposed to also step in to be there for the victims. The abolitionists during the slave trade in the United States and elsewhere in the world, they are the ones who stood up, and slave trade finally came to an end. So I very much believe that the Germans should start thinking about taking up roles, being active in fighting and trying to deconstruct racism and trying to work towards bringing racism to an end in Germany.
Turning to your work now as a scholar for the University of Wuppertal, you're involved in a very interesting project on racism in organized sport. Could you say a little bit about the purpose, the intent of the projects, and maybe you have some first findings already?
Okay, actually the project, my colleague and myself of the sports sociological department of the University of Wuppertal are working on has to do with racism in sports clubs. Yeah, so we actually set out to name racism, to define racism, to identify racism, to like bring out those aspects of racism that one finds in these sports clubs, as well as everyday racism, like Alltags, racism in Alltag, yeah. So those are the things that we set out to find, and also to get the perspective of the people we interview, the athletes that we interview, what they think could be done, and how they also could help in critique against racism. So far, yeah, we did like 12 interviews, and the recruiting process was not very easy, because of our sampling strategy. We decided for certain reasons to sample people of African descent, and we have reasons why we specifically wanted to address this group of people, in spite of the fact that racism is experienced by many other groups in Germany. We didn't just want to say people of color or something like. We actually specifically said people of African descent, that's people from sub-Saharan Africa, because we very much believe that if the issue of these people is addressed, it's going to go a long way to also, personally, that's my opinion, that's my idea, it's going to go a long way to address other racisms, in the sense that these people, they suffer racism at many levels. Even from a distance, you can tell a person who is black that this is a foreigner. Even from a distance, you can already start to see that this person is a foreigner. And if we look at the whole concept of colorism, the whiter the skin color, the better acceptable people are, and things like that. So that's why I personally was very happy that we could focus on this category of people. And to recruit them for the interview was very challenging, because when we sent out the first message, we got little or no response from the people.
Why do you think that is the case? Are people afraid to talk about their negative experiences?
Yes, people need a certain degree of trust before they could actually talk about these things, because these are very sensible things that do not only affect the people physically, it affects people psychologically as well. If you look at what W.E.B. Du Bois writes about the souls of black folks, you know, the double consciousness. So that's already a psychological malaise, a psychological torment that is already going on the minds of these people. They don't know how they are being perceived. They have a thought that they think about themselves, and at the same time in their minds they are trying to envisage or to imagine what the other persons they are thinking about them. So this two-mindedness, I mean, it's psychologically very unhealthy. So things like that, there's no trust even at the institutional level, even coming from the university. That this already shows that their trust at those levels has also to be rebuilt, because I had to personally make personal contacts, telephone calls, meet these people, try to rebuild the trust, try to gain their trust. Because as a black intellectual, I also stand a little bit at a different level from my own people. They might see me differently, which they did. People I thought I could rely on to talk with, that this is an opportunity for us to express ourselves, for the athletes that come from African descent to express themselves and say what their problem is, so that it could be looked into. And the first questions I had from people that I actually knew were reasonable, I mean, with whom I've studied, and they asked, who are those conducting the research? Are you sure? What? Okay. Are you with them? You know, that kind of. So I kind of didn't feel quite good about the reaction, and it really pains my heart because I think there's no problem I don't see any problem in white people or Germans working against racism or doing interviews trying to. I don't personally. I think it's the right way to go now, but there's another school of thought that says no. These people cannot be working in this. This is we are the ones who can better handle this, who are supposed to do this. And so who are those asking? Are we sure they are serious? Are we sure they really care? Do they care? What will it change? Does it even, I mean, you know, they asked me a lot of questions. So I had to really build trust and confidence in these athletes before they could accept me to meet them and speak with them. And even when I was conducting the interviews, I had to make little breaks in between because of that, because the atmosphere, the emotions and everything, I had to really consider everything to actually get the best out of them. So,
well, thank you. That's very moving to hear these in very practical, concrete terms.
Yeah.
How people are affected by racism in our German society. When do you expect that you will have the results ready or published?
We hope to have the results published by July, in a few months' time. So, yeah, so we are ambitious. So we are now trying to put everything together to publish a kind of working paper. Although what we have researched on, it's really big. So, but our working paper is not going to be too big. So we still have a lot of material that we still haven't decided what we are going to do with it later on. But the working paper that we set out to produce, to publish, we are looking at in July 2025.
So good luck in concluding this very important work. Looking forward to your results. In conclusion of our conversation, coming back to German-Cameroonian collaboration at the civil society level, what would you like to see happening in terms of how civil society actors in both countries can move forward, collaborating? What do you expect from the German side? What kind of support or contribution can we make to activities, to the process in your country?
I believe, from a personal perspective, that the Germans, if they want to be of assistance, they should work with non-governmental organizations, because I know they already have a relationship with the government. And from my observations, it will be good to work with non-governmental organizations who have suitable project ideas that are going to lead to the building of a sustainable nation in the near future, because there are a lot of things that still needs to be done. Personally, I'm trying to connect with the youths of Cameroon to see what we can work out, what we can do about the future of the country, how we can rebuild the nation from this perspective.
What would be your, let's say, concrete or specific ideas how this could become operational? What could we do? What could you do in moving forward in this area?
Personally, I talked about documentation of the German colonial past. I would like to start from there. I would like trained personnel to actually work on that and actually understand that the Germans actually did some positive things in Cameroon as well, which are even still useful up till date, and to create this space where people can visit it and get more knowledge about what the Germans did. And personally, I would like to personally train youth in the civil society. I would like to really work on the civil society sector of my country to try to encourage the youths and build them up and educate them on how to be able to work. This is something that I highlight in my novel, Angry, on how to do voluntary work, to work as volunteers. It's very, very important. It takes a patriotic mindset to be able to do that. And this is what I would like to institute in the youth, to have it in their mind that this is their country and they need to build their future, irrespective of whether they are gaining a huge sum of salary or money or whatsoever that one might want to gain when you are doing a work. I would like to institute, first of all, this feeling, this spirit in the youth. And I would like to source out, right down to the common man, the needs, what the needs of the societies. Because as I write in Angry, sometimes we blame the government, the people at the top, and sometimes the roads on which we travel every day, none of those people get to travel on those roads. I remember when the head of state wants to visit the southwest region, every place is clean, the roads are mended everywhere. How would he know that the people lack roads? When they know he's coming, they fix everything, is fine, everything is well done, and he drives past, he's happy that my country looks nice, it looks clean. I don't think they'll allow the head of state to drive through a road where there is garbage here and there when he's going on mission. They wouldn't do that. But it doesn't mean that we don't have garbage, we don't have problems. So we are the ones, the society, the community, we are the ones who are experiencing, we are seeing these things. So I would really like to work from the grassroots levels. I would like to work with the people. And this is what I've started doing in Germany, leaving the university and working with the civil society, because presently I work with Gemeinwesenverein, Heerstraße Nord. I'm actually doing a social work because I believe I have a calling for the people, not only as a writer. But
okay, so please, can you give us some specific information? What are you doing here at the local level in the Berlin neighborhood?
Yes.
What sort of activities?
Yes, I work with the Gemeinwesenverein Heerstraße Nord, and we do Mobilstadtteilarbeit, which means that we actually work directly with the citizens in a specific locale, in a specific district. We try to talk with the citizens, ask them how they feel living in Germany, especially the citizens who are migrants. How do you feel living in this area? Are you happy? Is there anything that is lacking that you think could be improved on? Are you able to be a part of this improvement? It's like we are trying to help people, giving them help to be able to help themselves, like assisting them to have self-help, to be able to move forward, to be able to come together, to be able to be a part of their society, of their community. Because if not, there are going to be a lot of parallel Gesellschaft, parallel societies all over the place. The people, they don't come together, they don't attend cultural activities when it is not their specific countries and things like that. And those are things that bring about cracks in a nation. Those are sensitive things that could bring animosity because of people don't understand what is happening. They don't ally with the biggers in society. They just withdraw to their own corner. So we'll try to bring them out to understand what is happening. And so far, there are some groups that have come up. We want to...
Well, what are the issues that these groups would work on? Or the concerns of the neighborhood?
There are a lot of issues that they really like. Some just want to come together to like learn how to maybe just sew, to use the sewing machine to occupy themselves to do sewing. Some say we would just like to be meeting and exchanging ideas as women who are migrants in this area and brainstorm to see how we can encourage one another in times of needs and bring ideas together. And recently we did a party, the International Women's Day celebration, which had every woman from every country to come in one place and have a celebrations. And sometimes my colleagues go out and then people will complain that the streets are not clean, that some people are throwing rubbish on the streets and things like that. And right now I think she's organizing a kind of cleanup campaign because we realized there were a lot of rats in the neighborhood and people were beginning to complain. So we make them do the work of coming together and clean the place and work together to live better. We have all sorts of complaints. Some we cannot attend to. I will refer them to where they can get help and things like that. So there are a lot of little things that we get involved in. One of my other colleagues was also running a Sprach cafe where they want to better their German. They want to come together and better their German and things like that. And we have another project, the Haki Sasa, which is an exchange project with Germany and Tanzania, where the youths of Germany, they want to meet the youths of this former German colony and see how they can have an exchange regarding topics like climate change, sustainable topics like education.
Is it happening through the schools? I mean, which institutional framework do you have for this kind of exchange between youth in Tanzania and Germany?
And within the framework of non-governmental organizations and schools as well. It could be a school, it could be a church, youths in a church, and then we have the age limits and things like that. So we can do that exchange at that level between the youths of this country, because I'm so much interested in the youths, because I think that it's a very good thing to actually deal the youth, and make them, because the future they will be able to handle. Because if not, in the near future, I don't know the way things are moving. I'm not prophesying negativity, but
no. Thank you very much. I think this is really an excellent example of how you combine your academic scholarship and your civil society work in very concrete terms. I'm really impressed. So thank you very much, Dr. Manjoh, for the conversation. Are there some final words you want to leave us with?
Like you say, I combine my university work and work at the civil society level. I would just say that a society, a community, a nation is something that belongs to everybody and concerns everybody, and everybody is supposed to contribute to building it. That's one of the reasons why I actually left the academic sphere and decided to come. It's just like you are the manager of a big factory. You take off your suit, you roll your sleeves, and you work by examples, because after reading all the theories, making all the analysis, writing 1 or 2 books and things that I could write and things like that, I became very anxious to see how these things actually function in the society, if they are bringing the results that we should be hoping for after studying and making all these things. So that's what got me interested to come out, and even also grounded my own organization, which I'm also trying to build the youths to actually work, especially the youths of Cameroon, to see how I can encourage them in nation building, especially in relationship with Germany. Yes.
So thank you very, very much, Dr. Manjoh, for this very rich and lively conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate being invited also to have the conversation with you. It's an honor for me to be able to have this conversation with you. Thank you.